We all occasionally ask ourselves, why do I keep getting lost? Why can't I focus, right? Or when you're watching something or scrolling through social media, suddenly hours have passed. We've all experienced this, and the real issue is this. We keep repeating this situation without understanding why. So, why does this happen? Let me explain exactly what I mean. The modern world distracts our minds so much that we're constantly chasing after pleasure. But unfortunately, this leads to unhappiness and mental fog. Now, let's take a look at why this happens and how we can find a way out. Are you ready? Dopamine, friend or foe? Now let's touch on a very important topic. Dopamine. Many people think that dopamine is just the happiness hormone. But the reality is much deeper than that. Dopamine is actually a chemical substance in our brain that gives us the feeling of pleasure. So when you're scrolling through Instagram, watching TikTok, eating fast food, or playing video games, your dopamine levels rise. But here's the downside. While dopamine gives us happiness in the short term, if we keep relying on instant pleasures like this, over time, we start to lose the effect of this hormone. In other words, our dopamine levels drop below their natural levels at some point. And as a result, we end up feeling more unhappy and scattered. For example, when you're watching a video or scrolling through TikTok, your brain releases dopamine, and suddenly you feel happy. But then what? Soon after, unhappiness and emptiness come because your brain can no longer handle such high levels of dopamine for long. Instant pleasures, short-term happiness. Let me explain with an example to help you understand better. Let's say it's the evening and you have some free time. So you start scrolling through Instagram. One photo, one video, one story, and suddenly hours have passed. Your dopamine levels have risen instantly, and you're feeling a sense of happiness. But then, something happens. To get even more pleasure, you do other things. For example, you eat fast food or start watching TikTok late at night. Your dopamine levels spike even more, and your brain tries to handle this intense pleasure. But what happens the next day? You feel more depressed and drained. This is because while your brain is trying to balance the abnormally high dopamine levels, it ends up dropping below your natural levels. These instant pleasures, the things that seem like short-term happiness, actually harm us in the long run. Every instant pleasure eventually leads to unhappiness and a lack of focus. We often get lost in this cycle. Dopamine in the brain. Scientific background. Let me explain how dopamine works in the body in a simple way. When dopamine levels in your brain are low, it becomes harder to do our daily tasks. In other words, these instant pleasures, which prevent your brain from producing dopamine at normal levels, make you more lazy, unfocused, and unhappy. So can we change this situation? Of course. If we manage to keep our dopamine levels balanced, we'll see a huge improvement in our mood and our ability to focus. But this isn't something simple. Because when our brain becomes accustomed to instant pleasures, our habits also change. But luckily, it's possible to break this cycle and make ourselves better. Leave instant pleasures, focus on long-term pleasures. So what's the solution? It's very simple. Get rid of instant gratifications, the activities that give us immediate pleasure, and focus on long-term pleasures. For example, doing sports, meditating, reading books, or learning something new. These may seem challenging at first, but over time, our brains get used to them and we experience a much greater sense of satisfaction. Now, let's observe the scientific experience of this together. Let's say you woke up early and went for a walk. This requires you to step out of your comfort zone, something you might not enjoy. Initially, your dopamine level might drop from 10 to 9. Then, you take a cold shower, study, eat a healthy meal at lunch, and go to the gym in the evening. These types of challenging and non-instant gratification activities will lower your dopamine levels in the short term. Let's say your dopamine level drops to 7 by the end of this process. Here's the interesting part. The next day, you start to reach dopamine levels that are much higher than your normal levels. Because these challenging, out-of-comfort zone activities allow your brain to work in a healthier and stronger way over time. And if you continue this disciplined approach for a long time, your dopamine levels will reach a point where you start to enjoy doing hard things. What used to feel difficult becomes easier. But remember, this has nothing to do with you. It's all about your brain's adaptation. This is the secret of successful people. As they apply more difficult and disciplined routines, their dopamine levels are much higher than normal. These challenging actions become a routine for them. Their brains resist challenges less, and as a result, their focus increases and their thought processes become clearer. In other words, focus problems and that brain fog, the scattered thoughts, disappear, and you can keep working more efficiently, no matter what. The common denominator among all these successful people is actually stepping out of their comfort zone, rejecting instant pleasures, and approaching dopamine in a healthy way. This isn't just a habit, it's a step we take to reshape our brains and make our lives stronger. In conclusion, by avoiding instant pleasures and incorporating long-term, meaningful, and challenging activities into our lives, we not only improve our dopamine levels, but also our overall mood. We become more focused, happier, and more productive. We'll see each other in the next video, in the best version of ourselves. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel.